All right. Today in Behind the Agency, I have with me Steve Hennegan. He is the new Chief Growth Officer for Seven Hills Technology, and I'm excited to have him on the show today. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm excited to be here and talk all about it.
Awesome. Well, I know that you joined Seven Hills Technology fairly recently, and I'd love to kind of get the backstory there. Like, what what's your background that kind of has led to you starting there today?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've got a degree in marketing, so that'll come into play a little bit more with my most recent role. So I've always kind of had a marketing mindset, but I've been in sales my whole life, mostly tech sales. I got into the custom software development space 7 or 8 years ago, and when I got into that space here in Cincinnati, Ohio, with another agency, I met Brad and Brian. Brad Gardner being the founder and Brian Adams being the CEO of Seven Hills Technology. And with it being the most competitive friendly industry in the world, we would meet periodically. We would grab lunch and just catch up over the landscape of the organization and the business. Then they hired a sales intern from Miami University, and I began to mentor a little bit and kind of teach him what I was seeing in the industry and trade secrets and opportunities to do some business development and some social media marketing type work and share different events that I may be going to and my strategy behind those events. And it just kind of naturally transitioned into a hey, when can we bring you on full time conversation? And uh, that started happening earlier this year, and we finally pulled the trigger after knowing each other for 5 or 6 years to join forces, which I'm really excited about.
Awesome. Well, I'd love to kind of unpack. I mean, this is a show that's all about kind of uncovering kind of your working philosophy. I always like to ask, what is kind of the sweet spot where Seven Hills excels? And I'd love to kind of like with that ask a little bit about kind of how you maybe are approaching growth specifically now that you're in that seat.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I would say that our sweet spot is more persona based, right? We kind of understand the types of clients that we want to work with, and those types of clients are people that are really driven towards the process and really believe in the process of building good software products. So I think really being able to roll our sleeves up, hit a whiteboard session, do some user story mapping, really help bring a product to life alongside of our clients is where we really excel and find our sweet spot. I would say on the flip side of that, clients that are just looking for outcomes or just looking to hand over a spec sheet, it's probably not a great fit for us. And there are a lot of other options and alternatives for organizations like that. I think we really, really enjoy the companies that we can kind of collaborate really closely with, problem solve, and strategize together on.
Gotcha. So you're almost like workshopping what they need to build with them, so that it's like you're on the same page moving forward before you even write your first line of code, kind of.
Yeah, I think it's really valuable to play that part of understanding and building something together and building a roadmap and building an approach to building a product with your development team. A lot of organizations feel like they have to pre-make and do all of that work before they bring it to an agency. And we kind of suggest the opposite, right? If you have some ideas or some thoughts on being able to innovate and differentiate within your organization, now's the time to reach out and we can kind of build this plan together, because a lot of times they'll bring a plan over, and once we start getting in and start understanding from a technical standpoint some of the possibilities and capabilities that the product's going to have, that scope changes wildly anyway. So we love a blank canvas. We love a good idea and thought, and we like put people through the exercise of user story mapping or collaborative sessions to really pull out what the end goal is, and what the business need is.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to kind of ask you a little bit. I mean, I know growth is not just new customer acquisition. A lot of times it's expanding with existing clients, retaining all that sort of stuff. But maybe you can talk a little bit about how you think about new customer acquisition, and then maybe kind of how that feeds into a broader sort of growth philosophy for you.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing I think about when I came in here was how are we going to attract the type of clients that we have a high level of success and confidence in being able to deliver for. So we really believe in personal connections. We really believe in giving and adding value to the industry and to the market. And a lot of that is through meetups. It's through being involved in meetup groups or helping with sponsored conferences and playing a part in that role to help put on some of these conferences and events both locally and more regionally. We really just feel like getting people together and having thoughtful conversation with very loose agenda, right, is going to return really good relationships that hopefully result in partnerships and client opportunities down the road. We do understand that it's not the SaaS world where we feel like it's a numbers game with when it comes to outreach. It is more of a brand identity. We need to have people in our market understand who we are and what we do really well. So when
Hmm.
opportunities do arise, we are the first that comes to mind for that.
Yeah. Now, I've heard some similar things where, especially as of, during the pandemic, there was a lot of stuff that was driven online. And now it seems like things have swung the other direction where with AI, there's so much sort of really kind of regurgitated content and things like that. And so much stuff can kind of create this artificial um, value out there. And there's no substitute for just in person, whether it's conferences or lunches or whatever it is, where you're seeing people face to face. You can't use AI there.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a big AI push, right? And a lot of it is based off of, yeah, there's some real efficiency gains you can have from your team building AI. Is it to a point where it's replacing development teams? No. But we're also seeing a larger push to organizations who weren't tapping into resources offshore, kind of moving a little bit towards that. And in that, doubling down on the things that companies don't look to offshore, right? Product strategy, product management, UI UX design, things that any business strategy or consulting, things that you wouldn't think an organization would look to offshore or want to offshore. We're really trying to double down on those experiences and really
Mm,
provide a really good experience to our clients in that area because we do believe in it. We do believe the interpersonal relationships and the in person or face to face things do really pull out opportunities and that we wouldn't have otherwise realized if we hadn't been in a brainstorming session or a story mapping session. There's always a point where that light bulb goes off on every single one of our projects that wow, we wouldn't have come to that conclusion had we not been sitting in this room together or we hadn't been mapping this out this way. So we live for those moments. We live for those aha moments that we're able to uncover through some of those thoughtful conversations.
yeah. I think that probably dovetails pretty nicely into another question I had, which is around kind of like how you package what you sell. Like, I mean, some agencies they'll do everything's custom. You mentioned earlier process, and I know some agencies they'll lead with their process, and it's like we take you through this stage, and we take you through this stage, and we maybe sometimes they break those up if somebody wants to like bite off a smaller chunk to begin with. Um, I'd love to hear kind of how you think about packaging and I guess bringing to market your offers.
Yeah, this one's a tough one, to be honest. And I think it really kind of goes through an evolution of how consistent is your lead generation in your pipeline, right? You don't want to be in a position to take on every project. You want to be able to be picky and choosy, and we talk about that confidence and success in delivering on a project rate. We want that to be really high, and I think to be able to do that, we have to look internally and recognize what are we really good at and what can we package. We're having conversations as a leadership team right now around that very thing, where it's
Mm,
productization of our custom solutions. So, what are some things, say design sprints, that we can really package up our process and present to organizations and really get a little bit more focused in one specific area and from a business development standpoint? Now I can have my business development team reach out to very concentrated population of organizations and people that might need that design sprint, right? Versus being everything to everybody. And I think the challenge is productizing enough, but also allowing customers to know that within those productized solution offerings, there is customization that is possible and actually encouraged within those, right? So being able to communicate that effectively is the challenge. You don't want to be everything to everybody, but you also don't want to isolate what would otherwise be really cool, creative, unique, innovative project opportunities. So that's a balance we're trying to play right now, and I think part of my role coming in and allowing us to identify growth opportunities is being able to kind of streamline some of our offerings a little bit so we can be a little bit more targeted in our approach versus a wider net.
Yeah. I think one thing that I've kind of come to believe around that as of late is productization is less for the company's benefit, but more for clarity on the potential consumer's benefit. Like if they can see, oh, this makes a lot more sense when it's packaged up like this.
Yep.
Yes, I know that it's going to be more tailored to me, but I kind of have an idea of like, oh, this month I'm going to get this, and maybe we iterate over time. But it's just like it's more about communicating clearly to your prospects, and packaging things in a way that they can kind of bite off, uh, something that they can chew, at a more sort of, it's not unwieldy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think a lot about it. I mean, that's what keeps me up at night is how can we better communicate our service offerings to our ideal clients? And when you're so general, people almost don't know where to start. I think you have to put some guardrails in a little bit, but not make them too tight, but also not make them too broad. But we have to kind of say, hey, this is the area we play in, but there's some flexibility within those guardrails to do some things that you may not be thinking about. And I think a lot of times in our industry, we are a let us prove how good we are and let us prove what it's like to work with us kind of company. So let us get our foot in the door. And that may come through a smaller packaging offering. It may come through a design sprint. It may come through a strategy session with our team that hopefully leads into bigger product build outs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, another thing I like to talk about is, I mean, I think most agencies, there's some component of their business. Sometimes it's a pretty big component that comes in through referrals. But what I've seen a lot of agencies do is actively try to get referrals through building out more of like a codified partnership program. Have you guys explored kind of partnerships as a way to kind of do new customer acquisition? Like, what does that look like for your agency?
Yeah, we're constantly exploring partnership opportunities. I feel like there's always service companies who are trying to partner. We haven't found one or two or three that really drives that value both ways, right? It's usually pretty
Hmm.
one-sided. It's hey, we offer this solution. Can you offer it to your clients? But we never receive anything in return for those things. So I think what we're starting to see a little bit more now is being a generalist agency, we can't be experts in everything. So I think partnering with individuals, especially on like the AI front, right, that have really specific expertise in these areas that can come in and help us lead these projects. Um, where it's like, hey, let's set the template or let's set the expectation for how we're going to build this, and then our team can go about building the product out. I think looking at people that have really specific skill sets are really intriguing and appealing to us. Also, like the data and analytics and business analytics side of things is an area that we're really trying to investigate good partners. Gamification is another one. So I think having access to a group of partners that have a specialty and an expertise that can add value to our consultancy and our agency, I think is something that we're targeting a little bit more than general service provider partners, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've talked with other dev agencies and they'll, sometimes marketing agencies come up,
Yep.
just as somebody who like, you've built a product for a client And it's like, well, how do we take this to market? And it's like, well, actually, here's a marketing agency partner that we have who's really good at taking things to market from there. But again, that's more like referring out, like you mentioned earlier. Um, I guess sometimes branding agencies, but it really depends on whether the dev agency you're in likes to do a lot of that sort of design work internally or not. So,
Yeah, I think we like to take each opportunity with, are we putting the right people on this project to ensure maximal success? And sometimes we would be a little light, or it's we have the capabilities in house, but our designers are booked on other projects, right? So then we would partner with other agencies or other organizations to bring in very specialized skills. We see a ton of that resource sharing across different industries. We're a part of a group called Kermit Collective, which gives us access to a ton of different agencies that kind of look and feel the way that we do. And we share ideas, we share resources. We've got a Slack channel where we kind of comment in there, hey, who has a .NET or a Java developer available? We're all booked.
mhm.
So when I started the conversation off with, this is like the friendliest, most competitive industry. It's like we share a ton with our perceived our competitors, right? We're constantly looking for opportunities to do that. So within that network, we've got a lot of capabilities that we can share amongst the group.
Yeah, no, that's super important. Well, I guess thinking forward, what do you see as, especially now that you're in this chief growth officer role, what do you see as kind of like your big goals or priorities over the next few years, even longer term? How are you thinking about that?
Yeah, I think first thing I want to do is understand who we are, so sharpen up our brand identity. Um, I think a lot of people try to rush to sell and market as soon as possible. I wanted to take the first month to meet every single one of our employees, understand what our brand is, understand what we're passionate about, what we're really good at, look at previous successful projects, and then create a brand identity document that's kind of going to be our North Star to everything else that we do. So doing that was priority number one. And then I think really being able to showcase previous work that we've done through the lens that will attract similar projects. So really sharpening up our case studies, really revisiting like how we're going to display a lot of those things is in the short term kind of my goal and objective. At the end of the day, do we want to grow to an insane size? Probably not, right? I think getting us to a good number around 100 developers or employees would probably be something that we have the appetite for. So what that allows me to do is really create a good firm foundation for what our brand is, and then
Hmm.
really start to market to who we are accustomed to working with. I want us to be constantly looking and analyzing the market and the trends. Right now, huge trend to offshoring. We talked about this, right? Huge trend to AI, right? How are we using these things to help us accomplish our goals and objectives? So constantly being in a state of, we know who we are, we know what we want to do, we know where we're going, but we're not afraid to reroute, and we're flexible enough to be able to do that. Getting us in a position to be able to take advantage of really cool opportunities that come down the road is a situation I'd love to see us in.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, is there any like advice that you would, give to your younger self or to maybe people who are earlier on in their careers? Maybe they're taking on some sort of, maybe it's just a CEO or a founder who's trying to figure out the puzzle of growth for their dev agency. What sort of advice would you give to them?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great one. I came into this with a SaaS sales background. So what I tried to do is make business development in the customer agency space a numbers game. A lot of times in SaaS, you're selling the same product to the same type or style of client with the same challenges and problems, and you're doing it over and over and over again, right? And so you can create a numbers game out of prospecting and business development. The amount of calls that you make result in the amount of meetings, and a lot of times you're not selling custom solutions, you're selling against other competitors, so price is really the big objection, and getting creative around pricing and annual contracts is really the key there. But in this industry, when I first came over, I tried to apply that same logic to this space. And what I realized was it's not a numbers game. It's about quality of conversations. It's about meeting as many people as you possibly can that are in your space that can really help point you in the right direction. But the only way to really do that is to add value to people, not look for opportunities, not reach out to people looking for projects within their organization. They know that, they understand that you have an end goal, they know what you do as a business development person. But I think looking for opportunities to connect and collaborate with people, is the thing that I wish I would have known earlier on. I
Yeah.
think that yeah, we're in the tech space, but it's really just about people. It's about
Yeah.
people. It's about adding value and looking for opportunities to help or connect, even if it doesn't benefit you. I believe in industry karma. I think the more you do good for other people, opportunities will come back to you. And as many opportunities I can do good for people, I believe that those things will come first full circle. So playing the long game, right?
Yeah.
Which is tough, right? Make sure you're in the right situation. Make sure you have a leadership team that believes in the long game and is in it for the long game. If they're in it for
Yeah.
quick growth, this is a really, really challenging industry to come in. Many agencies that I've worked with and partnered with and are familiar with have said, "Hey, we've cycled through salespeople, and none of them have ever closed a deal within the first year." Um, I think it's because this industry is really freaking hard. And if you're going to be in this industry, dedicating yourself to learning the industry and understanding it and saying, "Hey, this is my little sliver, and this is what I'm going to be." I think that's the best way to do it, because a lot of people get into this industry, don't have immediate success, and get back into sales, in SaaS sales, right?
Yeah.
I've had mentors tell me, "Man, you got to get the heck out of the agency space," but I love it, right? I love the building products from the ground up. I love that every project is unique and different, and I think you have to have somebody that is truly entrepreneurial and somebody who has enough confidence to go out there and just build good relationships with people.
Yeah. It's a lot less of a quantitative game and more of a qualitative game, it seems like. Yeah.
It absolutely is.
Yeah. Well, if folks want to learn more about Seven Hills, or talk more with you about, maybe there's somebody who heard some of this advice and is like, I need to chat with them some more. What's the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, I would say shoot me an email, Steve at sevenhillstechnology.com. Check out our website. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm constantly posting industry specific content on LinkedIn. I think that's a big part of my strategy of adding value. If I hear things, I'm constantly like, that sounds like a good LinkedIn post. That sounds like a great blog article. So I love content creation. So you can always find
Yeah.
me there.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much again for coming on the show, Steve. Love to stay in touch, and yeah, thanks for sharing all your insights.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really appreciate the time. This is great.